Hello and welcome to this, the Lord's 10th episode of Bonus Action, the Duels and Mana Dorks podcast. We're here to talk about the most exciting thing in Magic the Gathering right now, and that is, of course, the announcement of the Final Fantasy commanders that were just announced the other day. We've got Tidus from Kingdom Hearts. That's cool. We got Cloud, also from Kingdom Hearts and from Smash Brothers. No, we're here to talk about Aetherdrift, but like all this other cool shit's going on, and I kind of want to talk about that. But,
yeah,
you know, we got to go in order here. Aetherdrift's only been released for like a week, and we're already looking to the set in Droom. Fuck Tarkir, you know.
Yeah,
Tarkir don't mean shit right now. We got Final Fantasy in us. But yeah, anyway, the cactus can get 10,000 power in and of itself, and it's a 7-drop, so that's pretty cool.
Have we jumped the shark? Has Magic the Gathering gone too far?
I believe we can push it farther.
Push it farther than any thought possible, quite frankly.
Exactly.
We're entering Yu-Gi-Oh levels of power. All right.
Okay, so I've gone back to making TikToks in the last 2 days, and by making TikToks, I mean taking 5 minutes to record and talk about Magic cards on TikTok and then post it everywhere else. The Instagram Reels audience, none too pleased with my assessment that the cactus that can give itself 10,000 power is kind of cool and fun and powerful. They're like, oh, it's bad, it's trash. Dies to removal. I'm like, you can cheat it in for very cheaply and give it trample. Maybe I'm the crazy one that's thinking that the 7-mana top-end green card that can give itself 10,000 power is powerful.
I think Instagram's just full of haters, personally.
That's true. That is true.
It's a notable feature of the site, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But, like, imagine an in-universe Magic card that was a 1/7 for 7, that when it attacked, it gave itself +10.
See, that's more reasonable. That everyone would be like,
card.
that's a great card. Great card.
Yeah.
Love it.
Exactly. But when it gives itself +9,999, suddenly it's trash.
Whoa,
right?
we've gone too far.
Yeah, we've gone something. Anyway. We could do an entire other podcast about Final Fantasy when that
let's
set
not
is
run
revealed.
Away.
Oh boy.
Don't want to get off track.
2 in a row. He's on a roll. He's motoring.
I'm unstoppable. I've reached
Started
max
his
speed.
engine.
You know what I really love about this set is that it really is about family. You know?
At the end of the day, yeah.
It really is about being both furious and fast at the same time.
Some could say those things go together like peanut butter and jelly.
They go together like ham and tuna fish in many ways.
Like,
anyway, that's an Adam Sandler movie reference for those of you that have seen Big Daddy. That's the one. Thank you for the assist on that one, gentlemen. Anyway, we're here to talk about Aetherdrift, all the set features, and highlight some really cool cards, give our thoughts overall on the set. Unless you guys have any little intro thoughts, I think we might as well just jump right into it, right? All right.
I'm revved up and ready to go.
Revved up. Ooh. Vroom, vroom. Vroom, vroom. I need a soundboard audio for
really?
dumb bits, I think. All right,
I fully agree.
We're gonna start our engines and jump right into this with the first mechanic that is unique to Aetherdrift, and we will almost assuredly never see again ever, and that is start your engines. Start Your Engines is a keyword ability listed on cards that, when it enters the battlefield, if you do not have speed yet, you gain speed and it starts at 1. It increases by 1 the first time an opponent loses life on each of your turns. The maximum possible speed is 4. A lot of cards that have Start Your Engines also have a max speed ability, where it gains the ability if you have reached maximum speed. The best case scenario for this is if you have a card that starts your engine, and then you also are able to have an opponent lose life on the same turn. So the first turn that you have speed, you end your turn with 2 speed. So it would take at least 3 turns to max out speed. In a perfect world, it'll more likely take 4 to 5. Kind of a slow mechanic in a lot of ways. Definitely the one that is staying in Aetherdrift Limited and probably not going to see any play outside of the... Ooh, what is it? What is it? I literally wrote it down. Did I write it down? Maybe I didn't write it down. Anyway, there's one black card that I think is going to make use of it. The Speed Demon. There we go.
Of course.
Speed Demon. I'm just going to call it out. 3 black, 5/5 flying trample legendary creature demon. It has start your engines, and then at the beginning of the end step, you draw X cards, lose X life, where X is your speed. Everything else requires max speed to get an additional ability. Wyatt, you seem like you have a thought.
I'm just, as much as, yes, this mechanic is probably going away instantly and will be forgot about, I'm actually pretty hyped about it simply because it doesn't go away. Most of the time, I feel like with Magic cards, it's like they try to give you this setup that as soon as anyone like takes the legs out from under you, you just fall on your face. This is like, all right, well, I've already started my engine, so as long as I continue to do the thing, eventually I'll get to my maximum speed, and then I'll be able to do the really cool thing that I've been trying to do. So, really love that. And then the Speed Demon was one of the cards I was going to talk about anyway at the end.
I'm going to try and sprinkle in some cards as we go, because we usually like blow through the mechanics at the beginning of these set reviews, give it a nice little salt bay like Sam was doing, a nice little salt bay. But just to like get some cards rolling at the beginning, because I found when I edit it, we just kind of had to have nothing to show on screen for a while.
We just blow the load right at the beginning. We
Exactly.
hit the NOS button too fast.
Hit the nitrous immediately.
Yeah.
Kick it into second gear. Sam, what do you make of starting your engines?
I wish that it was a little less, we'll say niche. You know, if they had just been able to give us something that only, like, sure, maybe you want to add this weird extra tracker, but then just give us, like, a static effect, like, oh, all vehicles now do this. Kind of like the Ring tempting from Lord of the Rings sets. But yeah, I think we're gonna see 1 or 2 cards probably make it into Eternal formats, just for their low cost and the fact that the effect is still good late game. You know, you could get it on turn 3 or 4, and yeah, it's not on by turn 7, but it's still good by turn 7.
That's true.
We'll have to see how that goes.
They did definitely model this after the "you're tempted by the ring" mechanic from Lord of the Rings. 100%, you can see exactly where they got that from. Went with a different spin on it. I feel like it's a little bit less useful because, as you say, speed doesn't have any inherent benefit to it. The other unique mechanic to Aetherdrift is the exhaust mechanic. It's a new keyword. It appears on activated abilities. Any given exhaust ability can only be activated once per game. You can, of course, get around this by flickering the permanent, having it change zones. Basically, it'll reset. It becomes a new instance of that permanent. And to call out a Start Your Engines card... or an exhaust card, I apologize. We'll look at the Afterburner Expert, 2 and a green, 4/2, Goblin Artificer. Whenever you activate an exhaust ability, you can return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield, so it resets itself. And it has an exhaust ability, 2 green to put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. A lot of the exhaust abilities are good in limited as a one-time mana sink. And some of the exhaust abilities can be very, very powerful. I'm sure we'll talk about Loot the Pathfinder a little bit more later. But it is effectively a delayed kicker, if you will.
In a roundabout way.
In a roundabout way, everything is kicker when you think about it. But yeah, I think exhaust has some legs as just like a nice, neat way of... labeling an activated ability as only once per game. which is a little bit different than the repeatable activated abilities of most cards that have activated abilities. Sam, what do you think of the exhaust mechanic?
Yeah, I mean, exhaust isn't the first time we've seen this sort of formatting where it's activate only once each game. There are some other cards throughout Magic's history that have that on it. Overall, a lot of these abilities are pretty low power, but still good. There are some out there, like you said, like Loot, and there's a Goblin out there that is basically a one-time Goro Goro with fewer requirements. And even with that, you know, if Goro Goro is not your commander and he comes out and you get to make a 5/5 dragon once, you're pretty happy. So I don't think that exhaust is that limiting. I think we'll still see several of these cards come up. Especially, like you mentioned, the Afterburner Expert. Not a lot of... It's mostly a black mechanic that says whenever you do a thing, return this card from the graveyard to the battlefield. So that's kind of cool to see a little bit of a color break.
Yeah, I find the mechanic personally, having to keep track of what cards have been activated already and having to remember that they've been activated so you can't activate them again. I just find that entire process exhausting, personally. Wyatt, what do you have to say about the exhaust mechanic?
I personally love it. There's a deck I've been working on. I've been budget brewing a Marcel the Pretender, so activated abilities, and exhaust happens to be an activated ability. So even if you only get it once, it's no real drawback to Marcel because you can usually only do it once per turn. And I know that exhaust is like once per game, but, you know, in Marcel you tend to want to reset it anyway to do the thing, so it all works out. I'm actually really high on the mechanic. I think it's a great way to give things like pretty powerful effects while also kind of keeping them in check because it's an extra hoop to jump through to be able to do it again. It's not just, you know, all right, I've produced my 3 mana with Loot. I'm now going to go infinite doing just that, you know, like. So I really like it.
In context of the set, exhaust is very thematic because of the exhaust of vehicles. I also feel like it's something that could easily be brought back because exhaust can also just be like you're exhausting your creature. As another, exert is already in use for another mechanic, which we will get to here shortly. But I do hope to see it return as just kind of like a shorthand way of knowing that these are abilities that can only be activated once. Since they like removing text from cards now, and they like to shorten things up a whole lot. Moving on, we're going to rapid fire the last couple. We have mounts and vehicles returning. These are 2 takes on the same kind of card. Vehicles are artifacts that you can crew, which is tapping creatures equal to the power of the crew cost of the artifact, and then the artifact becomes a creature until the end of turn, whereas mounts are creatures that are always creatures and you can attack with them, but if you pay the saddle cost by tapping creatures equal to the power of the saddle cost on the card, it gets an additional benefit for that creature. Mounts are a little bit more useful because they remain as creatures even when they are not saddled. But vehicles can be a little bit more protected because there's a lot more creature-based removal as opposed to artifact-based removal in most formats these days. And then the last one is cycling, which is, of course, motorcycling in this context. Cycling is you pay a cost and you discard the card from your hand, and in exchange you can draw a card. A lot of cards that have cycling also have additional benefits attached to them if you choose to cycle the card instead of just casting the card. These are all returning mechanics. We know them. Saddle is relatively new, released in Outlaws of Thunder Junction last year. Cycling and vehicles have been around for much, much longer. Wyatt, what do you make of the returning mechanics?
Vehicles and mounts, you know, they're great. What can I say? Frankly, they're terrific things. Love to see them again. And then, as far as cycling goes, I've always had a soft spot for cycling. I think it's a very basic mechanic that has wide-reaching implications that you can do with it because it's not really in a specific effect that like can be stopped or interacted with easily. So being able to cycle is a great way to just kind of throw things away. You know, Reanimator decks love it because it's card draw and you're putting a card into the graveyard. Just great. Love to see it. Welcome back, cycling.
As you were saying, cycling is effectively excuse me. Cycling is effectively an uncounterable cantrip that oftentimes has an additional effect tacked onto it, and it fills the graveyard. So that's pretty cool. Sam, what do you make of the returning mechanics?
I really, I have a soft spot for mounts in particular. I enjoyed them quite a lot in Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and I think that they have done a good job to make some more usable mounts and more usable vehicles in this set, because that was always a problem with older vehicles, is like, what, Smuggler's Copter and Bankbuster Reckoner were the most usable ones. Yeah, sure, Parhelion 2 saw some play. But now we're getting some more ones, some more mounts, some more vehicles that are a little more usable, a little more versatile in their effects. Plus, their static effects are also often good enough. As for cycling, I'm also a big fan. As a person who loves to play Reanimator, you're just giving me a way to dump an 8/8 into the graveyard? Okay. In particular, I'm looking at Agnesaur Rex. It's 3 green for an 8/8 with trample. It has cycling 2 and a green. In this case, it says, when you cycle this card, put 2/+1 counters on up to one target creature or vehicle. It gains trample and indestructible until end of turn. That, you can play your somebody's intervention, and that can still be countered. However, like you're saying, this is a great way for 3 mana to buff something up and to protect it, or to just give it a little bit of an overrun, and the next turn bring an 8/8 out of the graveyard. Big fan.
You don't even have to bring that one out of the graveyard. It's a 5 mana 8/8 with trample. Like, either mode of that card is fantastic. I think that is the premier cycler in this set for sure. Cycling, I think, is one of the most clean and efficient, useful mechanics. And if you can find a card that has an effect that you want in a deck, if you can find a version of it that has cycling on it, it's just going to be better, even if the mana cost is slightly more in a lot of contexts. So those are the 5 core mechanics of Aetherdrift. We do have some sub-mechanics, though, as Aetherdrift is a race taking place across the various planes. We see Kaladesh, Amonkhet, and Muraganda. Sorry, Kaladesh is now what? A Vishkar? Is that the right one?
A Vishkar.
Vishkar. So a Vishkar, Amonkhet, and Muraganda. And we have a couple of cards that sprinkle in some keywords and abilities that are featured from those planes. We have affinity on several cards, affinity for artifacts, reducing the cost based on the number of artifacts that you have in play. We also have exert, where you can basically cause a creature to stay tapped down for an additional turn to get an additional benefit. And then just vanilla creatures making a return to Magic. I feel like it's been so long since we've had vanilla creatures, and in fact we have several legendary vanilla creatures, which is just
big vanilla creatures.
Big vanilla creatures. The blue one's got a big old booty. All right, a 2 mana 0/8 is baby got back, is all I'm saying. I think this is a really fun and thematic way to just sprinkle in some random mechanics from Magic's past, a nice little lore tidbit. I really like when they bring back those old mechanics on just like one-off cards, or like a small collection of cards within a set as like a sub-theme. I remember with was it Murders at Karlov Manor, with the new Massacre Girl bringing back Wither, just on that card only. I think that stuff's really, really fun. All right, do you guys have anything you want to say about the mechanics before we move on? Call out some cards?
Good, let's call out some cards.
We forgot to call out Landfall, because it is
Landfall.
in this set as well.
Landfall is also in the set. That is true. I did not make
Embalm.
note of that. Embalm. There are some Embalm cards as well. Man, I missed the mark on that one, Wyatt. Damn. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Before we get into some of our individual picks, I feel like there's one card that needs to be discussed above all else, and that is the face card of Aetherdrift. That is, of course, the Aether Spark. We have the first ever legendary artifact Planeswalker equipment card in Magic the Gathering. It is a 4-mana starting loyalty of 4. It has a static ability. As long as the Aether Spark is attached to a creature, it cannot be attacked, and has, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage during your turn, put that many loyalty counters on the Aether Spark. Its +1 is how it attaches to a target creature you control, and it gains a +1/+1 counter. It also has a -5 to draw 2 cards and a -10 to add 10 mana of any one color. When they revealed this card, they basically revealed the frame and the art, and were like, hey, this is a Planeswalker equipment. And everyone was like, what the fuck does that mean? I like that it does not have an equip cost associated with it. I like that the +1 is just how you equip it. Obviously, in artifact decks, there's going to be ways to automatically equip things or add alternative equip costs to this to make it even cheaper. I'm seeing people that are like, you can play this card and then play I've seen it brought up in the context of Cloud X Soldier revealed for the Final Fantasy set coming out on June 13th, 2025, where when he enters the battlefield, you can automatically attach an equipment to him. So the Aether Spark would automatically be able to equip to a creature, and then when that creature attacks, it can gain loyalty, and then immediately on the turn that you cast it, you can activate the -5 to draw 2 or the -10 if you deal enough damage to get the 10 mana of any one color. It's a very interesting design, and Sam, I feel like because it's colorless, it's 4 mana, it's not a Planeswalker that you can easily target with attacking creatures. I feel like it's going to just kind of fit into a lot of decks. What's your kind of take on it?
Yeah, I think it's going to go best in decks that like to play good cards.
Whoa now. Whoa.
It might be a
not get
controversial
crazy
take.
here.
Yeah, this thing, look, I know it has card draw on it. You're probably not going to be using this for card draw. You're going to want to equip this to something, punch somebody in the face, and then have 10 mana. And like you said, as the fact that once it's equipped to a creature, you can't attack it, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to deal with. That being said, and of course, as with everything, it still dies to removal. But yeah, this is probably going to be a little bit of a boogeyman in certain metas, I believe.
Absolutely. I could see that. Obviously, this is a great commander card. A Planeswalker is fun in commander, and a Planeswalker you can't damage is even better. Wyatt, you're more into other formats than I think Samurai are. Do you think that he's right? Do you think this is going to make a splash in other formats?
I could definitely see people brewing around it as like something special. Maybe using something like Kazul's Toll Collector, or Sigarda's Aid, where when an equipment enters, it automatically gets equipped, something like that. Maybe it can kind of do something in maybe Pioneer or Modern with that. I don't know, though, because any deck that's trying to play that, you also want to have it come in and attach to a creature that's already ready to, punch, and also be able to get to the 10 mana because you're, again, trying to, that's where it's going to get the most value, obviously, is making 10 mana. Sure, drawing 2 cards is going to be really great, and you should be able to get there pretty easy, but the 10 mana, I think, is what most people are going to be going for, so I do think that it can possibly start coming up in other formats, but again, when that card is competing with things that have been released in like Modern Horizons 3, it's just kind of difficult.
I've seen a lot of comparisons to the One Ring because of the card draw mode. It's a 4-mana artifact. I think this is obviously not nearly as good as the One Ring, and I think we can all kind of objectively say that. But I mean, you both talking about people are going to want to focus on the add 10 mana of any one color. I think just the repeatable every single turn you're able to draw 3 cards total at least is in and of itself the value that you would want in a lot of contexts. And obviously if you're dealing in a ton of damage, then you can also be like, all right, let's flex, let's do the 10 mana, let's like storm off, let's just take over the board. But I simply think that just dealing 5 damage with a creature, especially if you're using the +1 to equip it, you're giving a +1/+1 counter to the creature that you're equipped to. And so I think that just draw 2 is way more repeatable. And so you're gonna get more value over time instead of having to try and chase the Planeswalker ultimate. But yeah, no, Aether Spark is really cool. It's really cool design, brand new card type we've never seen before. Very, very fun.
It's also going to be very interesting if it can, because I haven't looked into it too much currently, but if it works with the enchant Planeswalker cards, like you can then turn that loyalty into whatever else you equip with it. Like,
I would love to
Teferi's
see what
talent.
the comprehensive rules say about the enchant Planeswalker cards with the Aether Spark if it is attached to a creature. That's too much. That's too much right now. Before we get into our commanders that we've pulled out as interesting cards we want to talk about, let's talk about a couple of cycles. I'll start with the easy one. We completed the cycle of the Verge lands, which is really cool. Those were introduced in Duskmourn, but did we really? Did we really, though? Because the Verge lands, they have one mode that's always on, and then one mode that's conditionally turned on. And it's in all of the color pairs. But not every color in each pair has a version where it's always on. So you could, in theory, switch the colors and then get another cycle of 20 Verge lands out as well, which I certainly hope that they would do, because I think
that's
are
down the road.
Very, for the time being, at the very least, budget-friendly, untapped dual lands in most contexts. So that's really, really cool. I don't think we have much to say about untapped dual lands other than we like them.
Yeah, they're good. And let's just give Wizards a pat on the back real quick for completing a cycle so quickly in lands. Instead of just, dropping like half of them and being like, all right, guys.
Well, it helps that when you make the cycle of lands, instead of 10, it's 20, really.
Yeah.
So they can work through them a little bit quicker and still have them over the same period of time. All right. The only other cycle that I really want to talk about is the Gear Hulks. We have a mythic cycle of Gear Hulks in 2 color pairs: the Bright Glass Gear Hulk, the Coal Stoke Gear Hulk, the Pyrewood Gear Hulk, Oil Deep Gear Hulk, and the Riptide Gear Hulk. The first one that we ever saw was the Bright Glass Gear Hulk, and I think in a lot of ways it's the best one. An enters ability where you can search your library for up to 2 artifacts, creatures, and or enchantments with mana value 1 or less and put them into your hand for a rate of 4 mana attached to a 4/4 first striking trampling artifact creature body. Really fucking good. Restricted to, of course, green and white decks exclusively. But I think that one stands out as the most powerful. I also personally really like the Riptide Gear Hulk. It's the blue-white one because I love prowess. And any card that has prowess on it, it perks my ears up a little bit,
Yeah.
Sam, what is your preferred Gear Hulk here? Do you think they kind of hit the nail on the head with these, or should they go back to the drawing board?
I'm going to agree with you that the Bright Glass and the Riptide Gear Hulks are the good ones. Like you said, the Bright Glass, that could, in many situations, like, come down and go get you 2 of the most powerful cards in your deck, a Soul Ring and something else. The Riptide Gear Hulk, one great thing about Gear Hulks is they're super, super great. The old cycle and this new cycle, they're super great to cheat out or reanimate. And man, the Riptide Gear Hulk, when this creature enters, for each opponent, put up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. 3rd from the top is not where you want your best card.
No.
3rd from the top, especially the best card right now. And when 3 draws, that might not be the best card for right now, but it's now in your hand. And if it is the best card for right now, you might still have to shuffle in the meantime. I personally really like the Coal Stoke Gear Hulk. Again, I'm a reanimator kind of person. This is a 1 black, black, red, red for a 5/4 with Menace and Death Touch. And when this creature enters, put target creature card with mana value 4 or less from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a finality counter on it. It gains Menace and Death Touch and haste, and at the beginning of your next end step, exile that creature. There's a lot of situations I can see this being really good in, and even being able to like chain down reanimation spells. From there, the other two kind of fall off, in my opinion.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. I was going to say the Coal Stone is really good because it's just any graveyard. So you can take other people's stuff that you do not want them to have and, you know, use it and then be like, it's got a finality counter. So now, guess what? I used it and now it's gone forever. So you will never get that back. I think that Riptide Gear Hulk is just such a blowout. Like, the fact that it lets you do it to each opponent and it's in the prime blinking colors. You do this, you just blink it 3 or 4 times and you've basically guaranteed yourself victory, because now all their best stuff that was on the board is now 3 cards deep in their library. So now they're going to have to draw these cards to get to the... And they might even be dead by that point because they're going to be hoping for something else, but you're going to draw what was put there. So that's just such a blowout. However, I will say I wouldn't sleep too hard on Pyrewood Gear Hulk. I know it's one of the more expensive ones of the Gear Hulks, but it's also in red and green, so you'll be able to ramp to that pretty quickly. It is a top-end finisher. Damage can't be prevented.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's going to do a lot. If anything, I think the Oil Deep Gear Hulk kind of got shafted, because it's like, you can look at one opponent's hand and you can choose one card, and then Riptide Gear Hulk's over here like, you can choose everybody. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely didn't want Oil Deep Gear Hulk to be too crazy. It has Ward 1 after all. Okay.
Yeah.
It's it's a pretty powerful card. But yeah, no, do not sleep on the Pyrewood Gear Hulk at all. +2/+2 Vigilance, Menace, and unpreventable damage attached to a 7/7 Vigilance and Menace body. Yeah, that's a very great top end finisher for any go wide Gruul strategy for sure.
And just real quick before we get too far, Bright Glass Gear Hulk, 4 mana, go get Esper Sentinel, Soul Ring. That's going to be the go get almost every time. I think that this card is going to see EDH play.
The thing is 4 mana and 4 colored pips is the tough thing to get around in CEDH, you know?
Hey, they played Niv Mizzet, and everyone thought that was going to be just, like, crazy to get to. They were like, 6 mana and it's all colored pips? No way people will play this. So...
That's true.
I don't know, but...
And it is an enters ability, so you can definitely cheat it in a myriad of ways for much cheaper than that as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame green-white isn't, like, the best colors in CEDH. White's pretty good, but...
They're part of the best colors.
That is true. Anyway, let's get into the cards that we want to call out. Sam very kindly divided these up into a couple of categories so we can be slightly more focused in our discussion than we have been in the past. We are, of course, Commander first players in a lot of ways, so we want to talk about some of our favorite commanders from the set. Sam, as the creator of this very organized list that is making my job much easier today, what commander would you like to call out first?
I'm going to start out with the new Mimeoplasm. Mimeoplasm, Revered One. I should have had this pulled up. I should have been ready. I'm failing you all.
We made the list. We put it on the list. We put it in the document.
You want me to hit you with it? I got it pulled up right here.
So the Mimeoplasm Revered One is X, green, black, blue, for a legendary 0/0 ooze. As Mimeoplasm enters, exile up to X creature cards from your graveyard. It enters with 3 +1/+1 counters on it for each creature card exiled this way. And then there's an ability 2, Mimeoplasm becomes a copy of target creature exiled with it. except it's a 0/0 and has this ability. So of course, the old Mimeoplasm, very powerful pseudo reanimator. This one, it's kind of a jack of all trades card. You're going to find your best cards, you're going to put them in your graveyard, and then for the low price of, who knows, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, you're suddenly going to have a 12/12 commander that can do anything. It can protect itself if you have a creature with hexproof in there.
Mm-hmm.
It can get unblockable very easily. It can get island walk. You can get more card draw. This is a very fun sort of commander, right up my alley. And it could definitely be a menace. Without menace, you could put
It
something
doesn't
in there
have
with
menace.
It
does
could
not
have menace if you put something in there with menace.
That is true. That is true. I feel like there's a million ways that this thing could just be busted wide open. Mm-hmm. And not least of which is the fact that X equaling 3 gives you a 9/9 +9/+9 on any body in your graveyard, effectively. Yep. Or any card exiled with it. And correct me if I'm wrong, if this is your commander and it is removed, and then you recast it and exile more cards with it, all of the cards exiled by it are viable to be copied across iterations, I believe. Because they were exiled with the Mimeoplasm?
No, so it'll still see it as a new permanent. So whatever is on this instance of the Mimeoplasm, that is what you're available to.
Trash, F tier.
But it can get around exhaust. You can use exhaust abilities multiple times if you have some way to produce, say, I don't know, 10,000 mana or something. You can cycle through a creature, use its exhaust ability, go to another creature, come back to the other creature, and I believe use the exhaust ability again, and basically chain up that way. Mm-hmm. So, very good card. I would expect nothing less from the Mimeoplasm.
Absolutely. Wyatt, what commander speaks to you, good sir?
I'm gonna shout out a little guy first, and I'm just gonna go with Koladin Triumph Caster. He is a 2-mana Boros, meaning red and white, card that says all mounts and vehicles have haste, and whenever a mount you control enters, it becomes saddled until the end of turn, and whenever a vehicle you control enters, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So this is like, if there was ever a better deck for vehicles with saddle being also part of it, I don't think you'll find it. 2 mana is like prime. Get it down. Now everything that comes in is going to have haste. It comes in saddled or crewed, so you're going to get any kind of trigger that's going off of that. And red, notoriously very good at cheating artifacts from the graveyard into play, so you could, trash for treasure or scrap mastery, something like that, and bring back all these vehicles, and all of a sudden your opponents are now staring down this board of crewed vehicles that are just ready and revving to go. I think it is a very good card, and definitely should not be slept on. Usually, if people play the Parhelion, you still have to be like, okay, it's fine. They have a Parhelion, but they don't have haste, and they still need to crew it. We got time. It's fine. This is like, I'll trash for treasure into a Parhelion, and now it's crewed, ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and swing at you. Now there's 2 angels on the board, and from there you're just cruising right into victory.
Cruising, indeed. Cruising for a bruising, some might say. Giving them haste at 2 mana is already, just giving them haste for 2 mana would have been a pretty decent card in and of itself. But then the free crew, the free saddle, those probably the best home for vehicles. And at the very least, if you're running a vehicle saddle deck and you happen to be in red and white, it's going to be in the deck regardless of who the commander is, as long as it fits the color identity. 100%. I just love 2 mana commanders a lot.
Yeah.
It's just a nice, easy early play that you always know you're going to have. It can really help set up just like a smooth game plan right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm. Gets removed once or twice. It's no big deal to pay that 6 for it or whatever. But
it's good.
Yeah.
I like it. Sam, what do you have to say?
This reads to me as one great budget deck, great budget build there.
Oh yeah,
vehicles.
I
Vehicles.
wonder why
pretty
Wyatt
cheap.
likes it.
But number 2, it's a great beginner-friendly deck, right? It tells you what it wants to do on the card, and you can just go through a Scryfall search and just be like, I like that vehicle, I like that mount, I like that one. Throw them in a deck, and bingo, bango, mango, you got yourself a little Boros aggro going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, some might say that this would be better. This could have been better, possibly, as a commander for a pre-constructed commander deck, which this set has 2 of, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
I added the link to the document, gentlemen. But we have Eternal Might, which is an Esper Zombies deck, and then we have a Teamer Energy deck with Living Energy. The worst energy precon that we've received in the last 2 years, which is third of 3, which is not a lot, but we've had 3 in 2 years.
If I had a nickel for every energy commander deck, I'd have 3 nickels.
Exactly. I would have rather had a Boros mounts and vehicles deck over the energy deck personally. But the reason I bring this up is the first card I want to talk about for commander is the backup commander for the Eternal Might precon, and that is Hashaton, Scarab's Fist. Hashaton is an Esper commander thanks to its activated ability, but as we just were discussing, is a 2-mana commander. White and black for a 1/3 legendary creature zombie wizard. It has an ability whenever you discard a creature card, you may pay 2 and a blue. This gives it its Esper color identity. And if you do, you create a tapped token that is a copy of that card, except it is a 4/4 black zombie. This card is already making the rounds as a very, very, very popular Esper Reanimator CEDH commander. Being able to uncounterably effectively cast a Thassa's Oracle, and then being able to Demonic Consultation on top of that, being able to cheat out very high mana value cards, things like a Hoarding Broodlord, for example, or I think it was Razaketh, the demon. Mm-hmm. Being able to cheat those in for 3 mana off of a discard outlet that is either repeatable or off of something like a Faithless Looting. Well, actually, Faithless Looting you couldn't. It's not in the right colors, but you get the idea.
There's lots of them out there. Just
there's a lot of things that
them.
let you, a lot of discard outlets out there. But yeah, Hashaton, Scarab's Fist, though it is kind of shit in the precon, because the precon has like 6 ways to discard a card, and they're like one-offs and no like repeatable way to do it, so you can't really take advantage of his ability. But in a build-around scenario, this has the potential to be exceptionally powerful.
I'm pretty sure Wizards just forgot to add exile that creature. Like, if they would have done that, this could have easily solved itself. But no, they're just like, no, it's still in the graveyard. You can do whatever you want with it. Yeah. Bring it back if you want. We don't care.
Find a way to put it back into your hand and then discard it again. What? We go for it.
Why not?
Populate? Oh, hey.
You're having to also be in Anointed Procession colors.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh,
how did we miss this? Song of, what is it? The World Soul Song or something like that? The one every time you cast a spell, you get to populate. So like a white enchantment.
Mm-hmm. White can't populate things. That's not a thing white can do.
Oh, yeah, no. It's not one of their core mechanics from Ravnica. Forget that.
But yes, Aetherdrift has given us not only a viable CEDH commander, but one that is already being theorized as a possible Tier 1 CEDH deck, which, by the way, is Bracket 5. Brackets happened as well. we could have done an entire
Yeah.
podcast about that as well, but we're here to talk about Aetherdrift instead because things are going just so fast. Just so fast.
That's the whole point. But I mean, I think that it's a very easy way to draw a line because it's 1 mana discard outlet into a 2 mana commander. Turn 3, you're dropping bombs.
Absolutely.
You're dropping an ancient silver dragon or It That Betrays or
It That Betrays.
I don't even know what else. Just whatever you feel like doing, just do it. Do it. Just do it.
What was the big demon that everyone was scared of in Duskmourn?
Valgavoth?
Yeah.
Or the
A 3-mana
that...
Valgavoth seems pretty good.
Yeah.
A
Go
3-mana
figure.
Maha Its Feathers Knight seems pretty decent, Just
3-mana Massacre Worm?
I think these are all fairly reasonable cards, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
That I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to call out the pre-constructed commander decks. Would not recommend the energy one. Would tentatively recommend the zombie one if you were wanting to build a zombie deck and it was going to be helmed by like the Scarab God or something, because it's in this deck, and so you get a lot of the pieces you want.
Or if you like
deck.
zombies and you liked the vibe of what's it called now? It's not Kaladesh anymore. I keep forgetting.
Avishkar.
Avishkar. The Egyptian, that kind of theming. Definitely pick one up because a lot of the cards have really cool art. So I think that one was just a home run all around.
Before we move off of the pre-constructed commander decks, Sam and I were talking about this on a previous podcast. I just want to call it out again: the Zombie Master in the zombie deck. The art on it goes so fucking hard. It's so good.
So good.
It's so good. The zombie arms up out of the swamp and then walking on the hands is chef's kiss.
Wizards pay
Shout
that
out.
man more that came up with that art.
Yes,
Okay, he was cooking.
Pay Johann Shapage. It's a blurry photo. I apologize. I totally butchered that, but shout them out. Give them more money. Anyway, let's go back into the rotation. Sam, what commander do you want to call out?
Well, I have been tasked by somebody very special to me in my life to call out this next card, and I pulled this card. It is Sabsunin.
It's the sexy frog.
It is the sexy frog. Yes, Sabsunin, Luxa embodied, 3 green-blue for a 6/6 god. Reach, trample, indestructible. Sabsunin can't attack or block unless it has an even number of counters on it. And at the beginning of your first main phase, put a 1/1 counter on Sabsunin. Then, if it has an odd number of counters on it, draw a card.
Draw 2 cards.
Draw 2 cards, even better.
Even better.
It's basically
so-
Ancestral Recall.
Honestly, this is a commander that just kind of does everything for you, but it's not a typical +1 counters commander. Because oftentimes you're wanting in a +1 counters commander, you're wanting to put in Hardened Scales, you're wanting to put in Doubling Season, but here you don't really want to do that because you might get stuck on a even or odd number of counters on it. So yeah, just individually putting on counters for this thick frog to, have your pod mates call you mommy.
Yeah.
Mummy.
Not weird at all.
But honestly, this is a kind of cool commander, and it's it's fun. It's fun to have Reach, Trample, and Indestructible on a 6/6 that's going to start growing.
Did they have to make her so thick, though?
Yes. Yeah.
I think we can only thank Valera Lutfulina for that one. Again, sorry for butchering your name, Valera.
We're really bad at saying artist names.
Very
She also
bad
has a
at saying
staff
names.
that has a fish on the end of it. So that's pretty neat. But yeah, no, Sabsunin is... It's a very interesting +1/+1 counters commander, and it definitely. It's a build around, but a fun build around. It's not going to be like super overpowered. You're going to be doing things that you want to be doing. You're going to be attacking with a big creature. You're going to be drawing a lot of cards. I think it's really fun.
I'm just going to come out and say it. It's been a good time for frogs recently, all right? Frogs in Magic, big come up, all right? We see you, frogs. Keep doing your thing. Otters, step it up a little bit. Okay.
Hey, otters have been eating good, man. Otters got a whole ass planeswalker. All right, let's pump the brakes on the otters call out. All right, shots fucking fired, sir. But no, I could totally see a fun frogs deck. Like, there's no reason to make.
Where's their otter god, huh? They got an otter planeswalker. Where's their otter god?
Who needs a god when you can traverse the plains? You know.
Everyone can do that now.
He's not special. Not the sexy frog. The sexy frog's on Amonkhet. That bitch ain't going nowhere. Anyway, Wyatt, what is your next commander you want to talk about?
I'm going to stick with Simic and our 2-cost commander, and I'm going to call out Sita Varma, Masked Racer. It is a legendary creature, human rogue, 2/3, with an exhaust ability. X, green, and blue. Put X +1/+1 counters on Sita Varma. Then you may have the base power and toughness of each other creature you control become equal to Sita Varma's power until the end of turn. This card is a finisher in the command zone. You don't even have to cast it until you're ready to end the game. That's what's so great about it. You get out all these little 1/1 unblockables because you're in Simic colors, and you play your, deal combat damage, draw card spells to kind of just keep your hand full, and you just sit back. And then when you're ready to go for the win, you bring out Sita Varma, you play your, Voral of the Hullclade to double the counters before you activate the ability, then activate the ability, and suddenly your little 1/1 unblockables are 20/20s, 40/40s, just something crazy, and now it's too late. It's too late.
And that's not even to mention incidental 1 and 2 mana pump spells that in green that can pump this bitch like +4 on top of all of that.
The Belt of Giant Strength, or Raised by Giants, and already she's coming in as a 10/10. That by itself, giving 10 power. Well, no, because it'll be, you just pay 3 mana and you'd give 10 to, your board. 3 mana for 10 power to the board, that's wild.
That is very, very wild. You call out, you have your finisher as the commander. That's been like an interesting deck design that I've been seeing some more of recently, where instead of having a commander and then wanting to cast it as soon as possible and building around it, having it like fill a weakness in a deck strategy, or have it be like a top end, like when you're casting the commander, you're going for the win kind of play. I like that card. I like that design. I also like that it's 2 mana, so if need be, it's like, fuck, I need a blocker. You can cast it for 2 mana, and then if it gets killed, or you're trying to use it just as some early creature benefits, and it's not really threatening in and of itself, so it probably won't catch removal early on.
Nope.
And if it does, frankly, you're just removing removal from your opponent's hands at a very cheap rate.
And I think your opponents will sleep on. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I was just gonna say, I think your opponents will sleep on it as well because they're gonna look at it as an exhaust ability, which means they're like, okay, they're only gonna be able to do it once.
Yeah.
We can kind of work around that or whatever. But let's not forget, green also has attack, like power boosters, power doublers. Zopendrill and the festival one that came out that I cannot think of right now. Wild Growth, I think, or Enlarged Growth.
Colossal.
Unnatural Growth.
Unnatural growth, thank you.
My man.
Doublers like that, and I mean, yeah, thank you for the save.
Sam, what do you have to say about our little
in Simic,
boost?
in Simic, you own all the lands, as is the famous quote.
That's true.
So 3, and then even if you can only put another 3 mana, maybe it's been a rough game for you, but 6 mana to pump everything on your board to a 5/5, that's pretty good. I've got a couple of decks where I've been working with a couple of decks where like you said, the commander is the finisher, or not necessarily the engine piece as it is in a lot of decks, and you choreograph your game a little bit, but sometimes it's just like watching a steamroller come down the road, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You've got 1/1s. Their removal doesn't feel good, and as soon as as soon as you want, the steamroller now has gas. So,
Absolutely. All right. I have 2 more commanders to talk about, and then I think we can just rapid fire some fun cards after that. And you guys each get 1 more. I'm at the end of the rotation, I think. So I'll finish this round. We all do another round, and then just rapid fire some fun cards at the end.
Sounds good.
But I want to bring up the mascot of Magic the Gathering now, of course. That's Loot the Pathfinder, being pushed very hard in recent years. And by recent years, I mean year. He's been in most of the sets. Loot the Pathfinder, 2 green, blue, red for a 2/4 legendary beast noble with double strike, vigilance, and haste, as well as 3 very powerful exhaust abilities. You can pay a green and tap him to add 3 mana of any one color, aka Black Lotus, kind of. And then you can also pay a blue and tap him to draw 3 cards, Ancestral Recall. Or you can pay a red and tap him to deal 3 damage to any target, aka Lightning Bolt. 3 very iconic cards and abilities, not at all broken in any way.
No, so Lightning Bolt, Ancestral Recall, Black Ludus. Gotcha.
Green. No, it's Green Ludus. It's Green Ludus.
Green Ludus.
Because it's green and tap to get the mana. So yeah, this is a very balanced card because they're exhaust abilities, so they can only be activated once. Notably, no way to blink creatures in blue at all. Those cards don't exist. Certainly 0 way to, say for example, cast a Deadeye Navigator and then soul bond it to your loot and then use the mana from the mana generation of the exhaust ability to then flicker loot and then repeat that loop, creating infinite mana of any color that you want, and then either drawing your entire deck and then executing a combo of some kind, or just taking the easy way out of continuing that loop instead with the Lightning Bolt effect and just killing everyone directly. Thankfully, that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Good thing.
Yeah.
Because
that'd be really powerful.
It would.
No, I think loot's very fun. Also attached to a hasty double striking vigilant body is nice. Its haste means that it can activate these abilities immediately upon casting it, so it doesn't have to survive a turn cycle of removal possibilities as well. So I feel like we just needed to bring up the Magic mascot because he's going to keep coming up.
A very tuned up card. If you'll pardon the pun.
They hit the nitrous on this one for sure.
Yeah.
Souped up, if you will.
Ejecto-cedo, cuz.
Car pun.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about loot? I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. It's a really good card.
He's a little guy.
When people say, it's not that, Commander, like when people sit down, they're like, I have Urza, High Lord Artificer, but it's not that Urza, High Lord Artificer. I feel Loot might become one of those. I'm bringing Loot the Pathfinder, but don't worry, it's not that Loot the Pathfinder.
And then they're casting Deadeye Navigator and Soul Bond, and then it becomes that Loot. Absolutely. That's perfect.
The only way I would ever accept it's a not that Loot type of deck is if they built it Voltron style, where you're just using the haste, double strike, vigilance part, because that's also very good.
It is also
Yeah.
very good, especially in while you're doing the setup. Because of the vigilance, you can attack and then activate one of the abilities. And then, oh no, it got removed. I have to pay 2 more mana, but then I get to use them all again. So, no, I think Voltron would be pretty cool. It's like a casual way to brew this. But obviously, this is going to be a high power commander.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's each go a little quicker now. Let's hit 1 more commander each, and then call up some random cards and wrap this bitch up. Sam.
All right. The last commander I'm going to call out is Mendicant Core Guidelight. This is white and blue for a star 3 robot. Mendicant Core's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. It also has Start Your Engines. And then its max speed ability is whenever you cast an artifact spell, you may pay 1. If you do, copy it. So again, right in line with the 2-pip, the 2-mana commanders here for a star 3. Now, I don't know about if you know this, but it's very easy to make 1, to cast artifact spells, and 2, to make artifact tokens. So we're going to get you can boost Mendicant Core's power up right at the beginning. You don't even necessarily need that max speed ability. That max speed ability is just icing on the cake. It's just nitrous in the tank. It's just a fresh oil change. I don't know if that one works.
A fresh oil change.
But I'm sure we could all think of plenty of spells where plenty of artifacts you're happy to cast, and then pay 1 more for. You're like, oh, this is great at 3 mana. At 4 mana, I get 2 of them. That is amazing.
Not least of which, this is a 2-mana commander, meaning that it is an easy turn to start to your speed, at the very least. Turning on, I mean, obviously the max speed ability is the one that people are gonna like guffaw at, you know, a wooga, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's very easy to just have like a fucking 7/3 for 2 mana. So, no,
Especially if you get to that max speed and then you play things like Academy Manufacturer.
Copy the Academy Manufacturer.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Forget about it.
Okay. I believe this is how this works. You create a token. There's 2 Academy Manufacturers on the field. They both see it. One of them triggers first and creates a food, a clue, and a treasure.
Yep.
And then the second one sees the food being made and turns it into a food, a clue, and a treasure, and then sees the clue being made and turns it into a food, a clue, and a treasure. And okay, so it's a cumulative effect. It's not simply a doubling.
Yeah.
That's fucking
if anyone
sick.
is very interested in like the layering abilities of multiple Academy Manufacturers, real quick side tangent. Shout out to Keeping It Casual. You can look him up on TikTok and Instagram. And he actually breaks that down. And YouTube. So.
Yeah, that guy's awesome. That guy is very, very awesome. When I'm editing this, maybe I'll remember to put a link to that guy in the description because he's really fucking cool and worth the view in a lot of ways. But yeah, Bumblebee Guidelight's pretty cool. You can't convince me. He's got the robot faces around him on stuff, and he's all yellow, and
he's just a cool robot. He looks
cool
like
robot.
fresh cut grass.
He's
just a cool robot.
R.I.P. in pieces, man. Damn. I didn't think we were going to be bringing Critical Role Campaign 3 into this. Shit.
Swish.
All right, Wyatt, what is the last commander you want to call out?
Last one I'm going to call out is one I would never play over Spell Table. It's because it's Gonti Knight Minister. This is a 4-mana, 2-black, legendary, 2 generic, 2 black. Legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue, 3/4, that says whenever a player casts a spell they don't own, that player creates a treasure token. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller looks at the top card of that opponent's library and exiles it face down. They may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Mana of any type can be spent to cast a spell this way. In person, though, this is one of my favorite things to do, is to not only are you incentivizing your opponents to attack each other because they then get to play the other person's deck, because they're like, oh, well, I'll look at the top card. That's a good card. I also like treasures. So you're incentivizing attacks away from you, and every time you attack somebody, you're getting something. So it's just great benefits all around. And this can also work with normal Gonti, or old school Gonti, and other ways that Black now has in its wheel to cast spells that you don't own. So you're making treasure, like you're benefiting even more from this. And it's just so good. I feel like the Gonti from Outlaws of Thunder Junction was just a little too broad. Like, it's a little too... It can do anything. It requires you to have a pulse. Old Gonti required you to put in some work. This Gonti is like right in that sweet spot where it's new player friendly.
Yeah.
And you have to jump through a couple hoops, but it's so good.
Hello, Jester. Would you like to come back onto camera while Wyatt is
Campaign
talking?
2 reference.
That's the name of my cat as well.
Right, but I'm just saying, look, we got it all in there. Now we just need one.
Shoop-de-doop. I think she's upset because it's dinner time, and I'm not feeding her yet.
She could probably see the bottom of the bowl.
That is true. All right, get out of here. All right. So, I think the best part about this version of Gonti, don't knock over my light, bitch. Yeah, get behind the monitor. That's fine. The best part about this Gonti is, it's incentivizing your opponents to attack each other, like you said, but because it is providing what is effectively card advantage for everybody at the table and temporary ramp through the treasure tokens for everybody at the table, most people are not going to want to remove your commander. It's playing on the social aspect of Commander and using that as a defense mechanism as well. And especially if you're building your own deck around stealing everybody's spells, stealing everybody's win cons, all that kind of stuff, you're going to get way more value out of him than everyone else at the table. Plus, at the end of the day, the worst thing to happen in a game of Commander is to be mana flooded with nothing to cast, or mana screwed and no way to cast the things you have. And he fixes both of those in a way for everyone at the table, so everyone gets to actually play the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's awesome. Sam, do you have any thoughts on Gonti?
Like you said, you're building around him. You're going to be able to take the most advantage of him. You're going to have additional cards in your deck that let you steal or mana fix or whatever to use these cards. You're going to get that treasure. You've stolen the Mendicant player's Academy manufacturer. You created a treasure. Now you have a food, a clue, and a treasure. It's all coming full circle. We've done a circuit.
Vroom vroom.
Vroom
vroom.
Checkered flag. No, Gonti is awesome. Gonti is the chaos that you want in a game of Commander, for sure. I'm going to wrap it up with the last commander to talk about, which is another powerful one, because I like powerful commanders, and that is Ketramos the New Dawn. It is another one of the Amonkhet gods that we are seeing. 1 white black for a 4/4 legendary creature god with menace, lifelink, and indestructible. It cannot attack or block unless there are 7 or more cards in exile. Whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you draw a card and you lose a life. It is not a May ability, so you have to draw the card, you have to lose the life. But I want to point out a couple of words in this text, okay? Whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards or the battlefield, it's not yours. Creatures dying during your turn triggers it. Or sorry, so you want to play like your Leyline of the Voids, the things that send cards from the graveyard into exile immediately, Dauthi Voidwalker, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Exile-based removal, obvious things. Your Swords to Plowshares, you know. Flicker effects. They go into exile and return. Not only that, if you build this deck with a lot of white cards, you see the enchantments that are removal based enchantments. Leyline of Binding, for example. Removal by putting a card into exile temporarily. Draws you a card. Flickering it to remove something else that's worse later down the line, or resetting your own enters abilities. You draw a card off of that. All of your blink spells are now cantrips. All of your exile-based removal are enchantments. If you manage to get a Leyline of the Void type effect into play, then any creature removal of any kind on your turn is card draw for you as well. On top of that, it's a 4/4 menacing, lifelinking, indestructible body. For 3 mana.
Yeah.
Seems pretty solid. As far as like the super powerful commanders, this is I think a far distant third to the other two I brought up of Ketramos and Loot. But an Orzhov, Blink / just like graveyard hate exile something. I feel like there's a fun little brew there where you're just digging through your deck and you're really fucking up the graveyard deck's day, you know?
Stop messing up my day.
I'm sorry, Sam. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I have multiple graveyard decks now too.
That's okay.
I just built in a Alesha who laughs at death or smiles at death one, because when by the way, if you check out a video that we made recently where we played a limited game of Magic the Gathering, a little round robin game of cards only released in 2024, I had a wonderful little 2-card combo there of Alesha who laughs at fate and Recruiter of the Guard. So I found a commander that can put both of those cards into it, which is Alesha who smiles at death. So fun little graveyard reanimator. Anyway, Ketramos is pretty cool. I think by far the least powerful of the 3 that I've talked about, but still really strong.
I'm pretty sure there's like an overload spell that's basically like a Path to Exile, but for like all of your opponent's creatures, and doing that and drawing cards off of that, just break my back now.
I'm excited to build the Sagas and Battles version of Ketramos. Because there's a number of sagas that exile themselves in order to bring it back to something else, and so do battles when you remove them. So that's my dirtily useless version of Ketramos.
That's fun. I love fun, weird tech, because you know what? One of those enchantment sagas, one of those battles is going to be fucking dynamite in any version of this deck.
Right.
And it's just going to synergize super well. I love that it plays with the exile zone at all in a more meaningful way. Other than just like sending something there to copy it, you know, just kind of some more generic value, incentivizing you to use exile as a zone more actively in the game, which I think is pretty cool. All right, let's go through. Let's rapid fire some cards that we want to talk about. We're just going to go round the horn until we feel like we've kind of said everything that we need to say. I'm going to first bring up a quick one, just a real quick one. Country Roads, Take Me Home. It's a white land that enters untapped if you control a mount or a vehicle. It taps for white, and you can sack it to make a 1/1 colorless pilot that can crew or saddle as though it had 2 power. But yeah, Country Roads. That's
solid.
All. Anyway, solid card. It's not solid. It's a 25-cent like bulk that's only going to fit in your. In your very probably it would fit quite well in your budget vehicles and mounts deck.
Absolutely. John Denver gave the card 2 thumbs up.
Yes, he did. That is true. All right, what cards do you guys want to call out?
I'll go ahead next. I will call out Sky Serpent Seeker. This is a green and a blue for a 1/1 snake with flying and death touch, and then it has an exhaust ability. 4, pay 4 generic mana. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal 2 land cards. Put those land cards onto the battlefield tapped and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Put a +1 counter on this creature. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know, but Baleful Strix is a really, really good 1/1 with Flying Death Touch. You could have ended it there, and it would have been fine. However, it would have been fine. But what makes it great is this exhaust ability. You know, you got a body, you can ramp pretty easily after that, and it grows it a little bit. Let alone you're in blue and green, so there's definitely ways to, do that multiple times if you want.
Yeah. It's just 4-mana ramp. There's no good 4-mana ramp cards.
No.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Also,
All right,
it combos with the Mimeoplasm to let you just kind of
It does combo
do
with
that
the
thing I was
Mimeoplasm.
talking about.
Is that going to be the next it combos with whatever card? We finally broke Mimeoplasm.
Yeah, it combos with a toothpick, We got it. The one I want to call out is, I hope I'm saying this right, Vinxed Verbose Host. It is a 2-mana, 1 generic, 1 blue legendary creature, Homunculus. You know how I feel about homunculi. 0/4 that has start your engines, and you have no maximum hand size. But if you get to max speed, if you would draw a card, draw 2 cards instead. What's better than 1 card? 2 cards.
2 cards is good. Off of every card draw trigger. I feel like people are going to want to play that.
Yeah, maybe. Consecrated Sphinx, eat your heart out, because now you draw 4.
God, this with a fucking Ristic study? No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm going to call out an obvious one that I feel like needs to be addressed here. We have a new Lotus, ladies and gentlemen. The Radiant Lotus. 6-mana artifact. You can tap and sacrifice 1 or more artifacts. Choose a color. Target player adds 3 mana of the chosen color for each artifact sacrificed this way. Some notable bits of tech here that are important to know. Normally, these kinds of abilities are mana abilities, and as such cannot be reacted to. This ability has you make a choice in choose a color, and then you target a player. Because of that, this can be responded to, unlike tapping a land or tapping a Soul Ring or Arcane Signet, or even like any of the other Lotuses. So this isn't entirely safe as a mana source. It can be responded to before you even get the mana, but 6 mana, expensive. 1 activation of it, sacrificing a treasure and a food, a treasure and a 1 mana bauble that you had earlier, or whatever, and it nets even on mana. It can also sacrifice itself to create that mana as well, if you really need the mana at that moment. Again, totally can't be comboed with. No way to break this wide open. No way to take advantage of tokens in any way whatsoever. With the Radiant Lotus. Sam?
Yeah, moving on, we got Unstoppable Plan. This is an enchantment for 2 and a blue that says, at the beginning of your end step, untap all land permanent you control. Yeah, at worst, this is Vigilance in blue. At most useful, this effectively will say, be ready to take another turn before your next turn.
Yeah.
Untap all your mana artifacts. Untap any creatures that have wild tap abilities. Get ready. You're ready to go at a moment's notice. Go for it.
No way that combos with anything.
No.
Not possible.
I'm going to shout out Full Throttle. It is a red sorcery, 4 mana, 2 red. That says, after this main phase, there are 2 additional combat phases. At the beginning of each combat this turn, untap all creatures that attacked this turn. In red, extra combats, there's so many things that benefit from extra combats. Ilharg the Raised Boar, or any kind of sneak attack type deal where you're only getting, 1 turn with the creature. Why not hit them 3 times?
3 is better than 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
That is true. I'm going to break our rule immediately. I'm going to call out 2 cards, but it's for the same kind of reason. It's not because they're particularly mechanically powerful in any way, but, well, they're real people. We have the Gas Guzzler, which is a black mana for a 2/1 Vampire Rogue. It has Start Your Engines. It enters tapped, and it's max speed. You can pay a red or pay a black, sacrifice another creature or vehicle to draw a card. But it's straight up Ben Stiller, just drinking some oil out of a drum, which is pretty cool. And then you have the Cloud Spire Coordinator. Cloud Spire Coordinator is a red and a white for a 3/1 human pilot. When it enters, you get to scry 2. Pretty good. You can then tap it to create X 1/1 colorless pilot creature tokens. X is the number of vehicles and or mounts that have entered the battlefield under your control this turn, and the tokens can saddle and crew mounts and vehicles as though they had power 2 or greater. This is just Tony Stark in the Iron Man suit on his birthday in Iron Man 2. That's the only reason I wanted to call them out. They're real people. Anyway.
Hey. Fair.
Sam?
I think the last one I am interested in calling out is the... Where is it? Dredger's Insight. So Dredger's Insight says... Computer, hurry up. There we go. It's a 1 and a green for an enchantment. Sorry. Computer, go faster.
Computer. Enhance.
There we go.
Enhance computer.
Computer.
Manuel? Dredger's Insight. 1 and a green for enchantment. Whenever 1 or more artifacts and or creatures leave your graveyard, you gain 1 life. When this enchantment enters, mill 4 cards. You may put an artifact, a creature, or a land card from among the mill cards into your hand. Now, the card itself is very niche and could fit into a lot of decks. However, this fits into a deck archetype that's been getting a little bit here and there that I would love to see come to fruition and play one day, which is just pulling things out of your graveyard. Just like putting things in to pull them out. They don't need to go on the battlefield. They don't need to... You know, obviously Sir Conrad is kind of the poster child for this effect, where he dings everybody for life when something leaves your graveyard. But there's a green-black bug from the Clue set that will create you bugs. There's a zombie that will create you zombies. There's a skeleton that will create you skeletons when things leave your graveyard. And I love this idea of just putting things in. And whether I'm pulling back to my hand or I'm just kicking them out of the game entirely, I want to see that come to life. I have to do Bill Clinton. I want to see that come to life.
As you're pulling things out and putting them back in, you want to see
pulling
them
out
come
of the graveyard,
to life.
putting them in.
Yeah.
Solid.
That was a sex joke.
Yes, that's true. That is true. That is exactly what that is. That is correct. That is correct. Wyatt, what's the last card or 2 that you need to let us know?
I was gonna say I got 2, and I'm gonna round it out. First card I want to call out: Packdoll Terror, artifact creature. It's 4 mana, 3 generic and a black. Artifact toy. When this creature or another artifact you control enters, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. It is a 3/4. This plus anything that when it hits somebody you create treasures. Forget about it. Forget about it. You've hit 1 person for 10 and you make 6 treasures. You've hit them for 16 and you've drained the table for 6 and you've gained 6. It is a wild card. And then the last card I want to call out very fittingly is The Last Ride. It is a 1 mana legendary artifact vehicle. 13. I was gonna get it. It was a wrestler's finishing move. Of course, I was gonna call it out.
Wyatt, I think you're getting
Undertaker's
yourself
finishing
mixed
move.
up.
That was in the Tombstone.
This isn't The Last Ride. It's Death Shadow. They just
Death
reprinted
Shadow,
Death
the
Shadow.
artifact.
Ooh.
Right.
The Death
Right.
Death Shadow, the artifact that you can play on turn 1 without ramifications. That also can draw you cards.
Yeah. Greed is played occasionally, I know. This is just better than Greed. This is just straight up better Greed. 1 mana,
100%.
get an artifact on the field. As soon as you can pay 3 mana, 2 life, and draw a card, you're never not going to pay that. And then, if for any chance you ever get low enough to turn it into a creature. Or maybe you just need a death trigger. You can crew it, it'll die, you get the trigger, win the game. So, Last Ride. Calling it out, it's a great card. It is a mythic, but I think it is very good.
And I will say, the Last Ride I pulled 2 of. One of them was my pre-release card, and one of them I got out of a pack. It's pretty cool. The art is amazing, and yeah, 1 mana for a body that you can have that's going to be really, really big later, and also just a mana outlet to draw cards with. That also makes you pay life, which then increases its own power and toughness because of its Death Shadow ability. It synergizes with itself. Synergy with itself is pretty cool. Yeah, no, so you took my last one, the Last Ride, which is totally fine. Totally fine. Totally cool with that.
Right.
Now, some people might be thinking, guys, what about the Shark Pirate that's really cool and wants you to discard cards? What about the Vampire Spirit that has like a landfall thing that's pretty cool? Guys, how could you not talk about fucking Mu Yanling is desparked? Most people didn't even know she was a planeswalker. Oh, speaking of Chandra, Spark Hunter. Pretty neat cards, huh? Well, we're almost at an hour and a half, and we're kind of done.
Yeah.
With this, the Lord's 10th episode of Bonus Action, a Duels and Mana Dork supplement podcast. Now, before we depart ways, never to return until we do this again, probably for Dragonstorm Tarkir. What do we think of Aetherdrift? What are the final scores? Sam, let's start with you.
Overall, I like a lot of these cards. A lot of them we talked about today, obviously, as the highlights. However, a lot of the overall set itself read a little low to me. I was very high on this set when they started announcing cards, but as everything came to a head, I kind of lost interest. I think that, for me, that lands it just a solid 5 out of 10 on the set review score. Why not? Yeah.
That's
set
fair.
Review score for Sam, 5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Wyatt, what is your final grade for Aetherdrift?
Final grade for Aetherdrift, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. I'm going to use the bracket system, all right? We're going to give it a 3. It's good. It's got a lot of stuff that I enjoy and things that I'm excited to brew around, but as a set overall, I'm just kind of leery about the max speed mechanic. I feel like it's going to end up being one of those mechanics that you want to build around, but it's going to be kind of hard to get it completely off the ground, and you're not going to see any support for it anytime soon. So nobody should hold their breath for that. The exhaust mechanic is cool.
Start
Really
Your
like
Engine's
that.
max speed is 100% like a dead-end ability.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a bit of a delay in the
but
recording now, Wyatt.
It's I'm sorry, it's all good. But the art was cool. The cards are cool. I like the way they kind of fixed abilities somewhat, so you could give them really strong abilities, but you're like, hey, it's an exhaust ability, so you have to jump through an additional hoop to do anything with it. And then I had to look it up because I wanted to make sure I said this right. That Radiant Lotus card, just to bring it back really, really quick, goes so good in your lock. Like, if you're in your lock, maybe look at picking this up, because you can force people to have mana that they won't have anything to do with. So, you know, mana burn. But that being said, 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. All right. So Wyatt gives it a grade of upgraded precon out of Dex. Sam gives it a rating of 5 out of 10. I would give it probably a C+, you know. Art's cool. I love a lot of the individual cards in this set. The Gear Hulks are a nice little series. The excuse me, the Amonkhet Gods, a nice little cycle. I love the Verge lands. Ether Spark, we're breaking new ground with card types. Going into this, I thought I was going to really hate this set. Just from a thematic standpoint, I thought it was lame as shit. and I was like, oh, they're playing around with like an equipment planeswalker. All right, whatever. The specific cards are, of course, like most Magic sets, of a quality that you're gonna find something you can play with for the long term. Be that getting lucky and grabbing an Ether Spark, be that a Gear Hulk that's particularly useful, be that just some... We didn't even get into really any instants and sorceries, but there's a lot of pretty solid commons and uncommons that can go in and just fill a role in a deck in this set. So yeah, I think the official bonus action grade is... It's pretty alright.
Yeah. It's all right.
Not
Pretty
too
all
bad.
right.
If
we were to rate it on a scale of family,
that is your final grade for
fam.
Aetherdrift. That's your final grade for Aetherdrift from the Dungeon Bros plus Typical Gemini, aka Wyatt. You can find Wyatt at Typical Gemini on wherever you can find social media. He has fantastic budget deck techs, like $25 and less, and we just lost him. Isn't that just wonderful? Our
Great
connection.
Guy. Good to know him.
Yeah, fuck that guy. Get out of here. We don't need him. I'm wrapping up the show anyway. But yes, please go check out Wyatt at Typical Gemini. You can see that link in the description below. He's got deck techs for days. Sam, thank you for joining me. It's been wonderful, as per usual. We all love you very much at home. And as always, we got to do that without Wyatt. And we did like a normal exit. Isn't that crazy?